Thank you so much. Good afternoon. Do me a quick favor. Turn to one of your neighbors on your left or your right. Give them a high five and tell them we fixing to have a good time. All right. Yes. Now I'm in the coveted SHRM slot of being the last speaker of the day. You have no idea how hard I had to fight to get the privilege to be your very last speaker of the day. And so many of you came, and I was thinking about that, why people would show up, you know, for the last speaker of the day. I'm the only thing that stands between you and Tim McGraw tonight. And you came, and so I figure it's for one of three reasons. Number one, I'm an incredibly good speaker. Why are you laughing? That wasn't humor. The second reason is you've never heard Tim McGraw. Right? Now, he does two types of music, country and western. And he's incredibly good. If you don't listen to country and western, you need to start. Country and western music has the ability to lift your mood regardless of what's going on. If I'm having a bad day, I turn on country and western, because I can just listen for about half an hour and discover that my day isn't nearly as bad as whoever wrote that song. I mean, my day's bad, but I haven't had to divorce the dog or shoot the truck, so it hadn't been all that bad. Now, the other reason that you might have shown up, the third possible reason, is because you got a lousy boss. Now, if you have ever had a lousy boss, and he or she is not sitting next to you right now, go ahead and raise your hand. Now that's everybody. Well, let's try for the smaller group. Is there anybody in here who has never ever had a lousy boss? You work for yourself, don't you? You don't? You actually work for somebody? You actually have a boss? I'll be casting out lying demons at the end of this, all right? So, all right. So, just about everybody at some point in time has had a boss that they really needed to lead. As quiet as it's kept. Those of you who are HR professionals, you really have the responsibility of leadership in the organization. Not just your responsibility to fix problems when they show up at your desk on Monday morning. It is really your responsibility to be in a leadership role. Not only with the employees themselves, your team members, but also with everybody else that's in the C-suite. That CEO, COO, CFO, and C, Lord help me. All of them, you have a responsibility of leading them also. So this afternoon, what I want to talk about is how to be on top of your game when you're actually leading your boss. Okay, now if you can take that camera off me and put it right there, we go. Now, the leading up philosophy. Zig Ziglar, one of my favorite speakers out of Dallas, Texas, said that you can get everything you want out of life as long as you're willing to help enough other people get what they want. So when we're talking about leading up, getting someone who's higher than you in the food chain to actually perform at an A-game level, understand this. You can accomplish everything you want to accomplish in life as long as you're willing to help the boss, whoever he or she is, accomplish what they want to get done. It is your ability to subordinate your ego for just a little while so you can discover what is it that they really want to accomplish and how do I help them get that. What we're really talking about is you getting your boss to manifest his or her intended level of greatness. At my business, Eagles Nest Performance Management, all we talk about is trying to help people gain enough clarity and focus so that they can manifest their intended level of greatness. In other words, being everything that they have the possibility of being. Dr. Benjamin E. Mays, the president emeritus of Morehouse University in Atlanta, Georgia, said that wealth, position, and power are no measures of greatness. He said, what we become in life and what we could have been, those among us that close that gap, those are the ones that are considered great. It's just not a matter of you doing better than the person that's seated to your left or your right or even anyone in your organization. It is you maximizing your potential, manifesting your intended level of greatness. And when you are in human resources, When you know more about people than anybody else in the organization, it is your ability to get even those people that are higher than you on the food chain manifesting their intended level of greatness. It's you seeing more potential in them than a lot of times they even see in themselves. So this afternoon, two things. One, I want to sell you on the fact that everybody that's above you in the food chain actually has an intended level of greatness. Now, I also want to sell you on the idea that you have an intended level of greatness. Those are my two sales for this afternoon. I always start my sales process exactly the same way with a poem called The Challenge to Greatness. And it says simply, everyone that's risen great deeds to do began their life with no more than you. And as they have triumphed and come to skill, you too can be great if you only will. You're well equipped for any fight you choose. You've got God-given gifts and a brain to use. But you're the greatest handicap that you'll ever face, because you're the one that must choose your place. God has equipped us for life, but he lets us decide just how great we will be. Your courage must come from the soul within. You must furnish the will to win. With your same equipment, all of the greats began. So aim for the stars and say, I can. Turn to a neighbor on the other side, give them a high five and just say, I can. I can, yeah. Those are two of the most important words in the English language, I can. An individual that believes that he or she can will overcome all kinds of trials and all kinds of obstacles in order to manifest their intended level of greatness. Unfortunately, an individual that believes that he or she can't will be just as effective in getting that outcome in everything that they do in life. It's a matter of what's going on in their head. And when you're talking about leading up the food chain, you're really talking about figuring out what's going on in his or her head, trying to help them get a better picture of who they could be so that you can move them and the organization forward. I've discovered in all the years that I've done executive coaching and counseling work that there are only three types of people in the world. First of all, you've got those people that can't and don't. Really small group, less than 10%. People that showed up in the earth and they might have been missing something. It might have been an emotional problem, might have been a mental problem, maybe even physical. And it hinders them in everything that they do. But it's a small group, only less than 10%, and it's all the way at one end of the spectrum. Over at the other end, you get the people that can and do. These are people that have high self-esteem, high feelings of self-efficacy. They understand what their potential is, and they're willing to go through whatever is required in order to manifest their intended level of greatness. Unfortunately, that's a small group too, less than 10%. And right in the middle, the largest group, more than 80%. These are the people that can, they just don't. You know who they are. They show up at your desk every Monday morning. They spent the whole weekend thinking about how they could give you a headache for the next week. You ever notice that when people have problems, they never have problems on Saturday and Sunday? As a counselor, I've discovered everybody feels good on Saturday and Sunday. It's Monday when everybody shows up. They pretty much have started to come out of it a little bit by Wednesday. They've got a few more dysfunctions that take the fun out of it come Thursday. By Friday afternoon, they're starting to feel real good. Saturday and Sunday, they're having a great time. And then Monday hits all over again. What we want to understand is, what do we do about all of those people that are in that large group that's right in the middle? And what do you do if your boss is one of those individuals that's right in that middle group? He just doesn't. Shows up in your office all the time, moaning and groaning about how bad things are. What do you do when your boss is in that group? I've got a client who runs human resources for a small development company in Northern Virginia. And she brought me in sort of undercover. She said, I want you to come in and write a strategic plan. We need to really get everybody on the same sheet of music. I know you do that kind of work, so come in and we want you to do some work on a strategic plan. And she told me all this on a conference call. So I showed up the next week, came in on a Tuesday, went into her office. She closed the door behind me. That should have been a clue right there. Closed the door behind me, and she said, you remember what I told you on the conference call? And I said, yeah, you want me to do a strategic plan? She goes, that was a lie. I said that because there were other people in the office at the time. I don't really care about a strategic plan. If you took a sheet of paper right there and wrote, "This is your strategic plan," I'd pay you for that. That's not what I really want you to do. I'm going, okay, well, what is it you want me to do? I need you to work with the company president. Oh, okay, what do you want? I need you to coach him. I need you to figure out what's going on with him. Yeah, he's taking the fun out of dysfunction. I need you to spend some time with him. Help him. Grow him up some. Turn him into something human. Do something with him because he's about to kill me. And I said, well, why don't you just tell him that, you thought it'd be good for him to have some executive coaching work. She goes, he wouldn't listen. He really thinks he's all that in a bag of chips. You can't do it that way. I'm going to tell him you're doing strategic planning work, and in the middle of some of those discussions, kind of throw in some of that stuff that you do to figure out what's wrong with folks. I said, well, he couldn't possibly be that bad. She goes, let me tell you about last week. We had clients that came in on Monday of last week. They flew over the weekend so that they were here first thing Monday morning. They were supposed to have a meeting with 4 of us from this company. He was supposed to be leading the meeting. He didn't show up at 9 o'clock. By noon, he still hadn't made it in. I did the meeting myself. He hadn't shown up by 4 o'clock. He called me 8 o'clock that night and said, I forgot today was Monday. Now, that's a true story. I forgot it was Monday. Now, when you have a boss that forgets it's Monday, that kind of tells you that their thought really isn't on what you're trying to do in that organization. He forgot it was Monday. In my opinion, if it was my company, I'd let him continue to forget. He said, no, it wasn't. Yesterday was Friday. Yesterday was Friday. What we want to do, if you have a boss that's like that, someone that's in that middle group, we want to move them over there. That also means that you and I have to be over there. I can't lead somebody to a place that I've never been myself. I really have to make sure that I'm in that can and do column, and then I want to move the boss over there also. A lot of my work is with the federal government, so I work with senior executive service members. These are people that went from GS 14 and 15 to SES 4, 3, 2, and 1. So going back to my previous life as a military officer, these are people that are flag officers. So they're generals or they're admirals when it comes to the federal government. When you go to the OPM website, it says that these people are the ones that are leading the continuing, notice the word, transformation of government, making it a more result-oriented entity. What we're talking about are people that are not just transactional, but transformational. As someone who is leading up, you want to get your boss to the point that they are being more transactional than we're actually more transformational than transactional. Transactional means that when I got here, the train was on a track. It was headed north at 25 miles an hour. And I want to make sure for the 12 years that I'm sitting at this desk that the train stays on the track, continues going north at 12 miles an hour. What you want to do is to be that individual that causes them to think about other things. Watson Wyatt did a survey years ago kind of looking at executive competence. And in that, they said that only 49% of employees, that's less than half, 49% have trust and confidence in their senior leaders. They said that only 45% thought that their senior leaders acted consistently with organizational core values, even though they wrote them most of the time. And that 47% of their leaders made the changes that the organization needed in order to make them more competitive. Now, if you look at the red numbers on that slide, that will inform you that 51% of the employees that got surveyed said that they don't have trust and confidence in their senior leaders. 55% said their senior leaders acted inconsistently. And 53% said that they did not make the kinds of changes that made the organization more competitive. Now, when we have leaders like this, you know how it ends up for you because you're an HR professional. That means with those kind of numbers, at some point in time, one of these leaders are going to show up in your office and say, the numbers don't look good, things are not working well, and we need to get rid of some folks. You decide who those people are going to be. If you want to stop having those bad Tuesdays where you bring people in and you tell them, sorry, business has not been well, things are not going good, we're going to have to let you go. If you don't want to have those kinds of conversations, then you need to figure out how to lead up. There are 2 main reasons to be a more effective up leader. First of all, you got a lousy boss. If you have somebody that made it up to that point just simply because they hung around long enough, everybody else died, they kept coming in, and they put them in charge. If you have a leader like that, that's a great reason for you to learn how to lead up. I can remember when I was an officer in the Army, there was this one performance evaluation that went around to everybody. I think everybody during my time got a chance to see it. It said, this second lieutenant's men would follow him anywhere, but it's only out of a sense of morbid curiosity. They want to see what he's going to jack up next. All right, so if you got a leader like that, you really want to make sure that you learn how to lead that individual coming from that second chair. But you also want to do it if you got a great boss. You got somebody that's really a hard charger. She's moving. She understands exactly what's required in the organization. She pays attention to the financial numbers. She pays attention to the most important resource, those team members. She really can lead. That's somebody that you want to really attach on to their coattails, because wherever they go, they'll probably take you along. I have really found sort of a baker's dozen, about 13 of what I call really challenging bosses. First of all, you got the devil wears Prada boss. This is the one that really doesn't see you as a professional. All she really wants you to do is personal services for her. Show up in the morning and do what I tell you to do. This is the kind of individual that really does not care about the organization. They're just really, you are trying to write all this down. That's not going to work. Oh, Lord, that's not going to work. Okay, here's why this won't work. Most normal human beings, most normal speakers, have a speaking rate that's anywhere between about 250 and 275 words a minute. That's really moving. I kind of start off at 345, 350, and I got gusts up to like 500. Right? And right now I'm gusting. So you trying to write it all down really ain't gonna work. So let's do this. My presentation is not on the website. They may load it up after I get finished today. I'm not sure. But if you would like a copy of the presentation, if you would do me the great favor of coming up to the stage at the end, give me your business card. I will make sure that my staff sends it out to everybody so you have a complete presentation. And let me go a little bit further. If you find some of what I'm telling you helpful, please feel free to use it in your organization. All right? If you'd like to use some of it for teaching purposes, please feel free. Does that work for everybody? Excellent. All right, let's keep going. All right, so you got this devil wears Prada boss, right? You're trying to pay attention to business. They're trying to pay attention to being on the top of their self-installed pedestal. Then you got the control freak boss. You know who he is. He shows up at your desk on Monday morning before you ever show up. He wants to micromanage you to death. Anything that you send in, he tells you, it should have been stated this way. You should have worded it like this. You got a complete just a control freak. You've got the Ray Charles boss, just as blind as he could be. Couldn't find a vision if somebody led him to it and tripped him on it. You got the transactional boss, the one that just keep doing it. Show up every day, just do the work. Doesn't matter whether we're getting anything done. Just come in here and give me 8 hours. You got the political boss, the one that got there through using politics in the organization. Many ticks, blood-sucking insects, and they just sucking the life right out of you. You got the narcissistic boss, the one that is always looking at him. He thinks he is just God's gift to everything. Got 2, 3 mirrors in his office all the time. Aren't I pretty? Don't look at me, see me. You got the incompetent boss, the one that really couldn't run an organization, but he was good at IT, and so they moved him up and put him in. Oh Lord, here we go. Yeah, you got the dead-on arrival boss, the one that's just scared of everything. Every time you come up with an opportunity, they can find the downside in it. You got the missing in action boss. Shows up first thing Monday morning. You don't see him again until 4 o'clock Friday afternoon. You know they're in there somewhere because the car's in the parking lot. You got the George S. Patton boss. The one that says, I'm not going to die for my company. I want somebody else to die, and it's got to be you. You've got the no people skills boss. The one that understands everything technically, but they couldn't find a people skill. They don't even like themselves most of the time. You got the my life sucks and so yours should too boss. The one everything's just miserable. My dog doesn't like me. The kids ran away. And so my life is bad. Your life ought to be bad too. Now, those are my 13, but what I have discovered is that some of them are hybrids. Now, hybrid means they're not just one. They got a bunch of stuff going on in there. And you got to figure out all of that stuff if you really going to make this work. These are 3 of mine. There was John. John was low self-esteem, low self-efficacy, and transactional. John had been in the position for about 2 years, and John wanted to keep doing everything that his predecessor had done. And so as I was thinking up a better way of doing things, another vision, something else we could go after, John wanted to keep doing what he had always done. Then I had George. George literally did suck the blood out of me. George was low self-esteem, low self-efficacy, and a control freak. There were times when I would show up, and I'm an early guy. I generally show up early when I'm going somewhere, and I could show up at 7 o'clock on a Monday morning, and George would already be at my desk. George would find some of the most nitpicky things that needed to be changed in any document that I wrote. Made no sense at all, didn't add anything to the document, but well, I just don't like the way this is phrased. And then was Charles. Charles was low self-esteem, low self-efficacy, and no people skills whatsoever. Charles would come in first of the week, go in his office and close his door. He swore he was in there working, but every time I knocked on that door and actually went in there, he was watching something on internet, listening to some tape or something. He was never really in there working. And what became very, very apparent was that he was terrified of people. He got to that position because he hung around long enough. We find a lot of people that we're supposed to lead in that subordinate position that are hybrids. They've got a lot of different things going on. Albert Einstein said we cannot solve our problems with the same level of thinking that created them. So this afternoon, what we want to come up with is a different paradigm when it comes to leading your boss. And the guy that I found that did it the best was Bagger Vance. Now, if you have not seen that movie, I suggest you, in addition to all of the books that you brought here at SHRM, I suggest that you go out and get yourself a copy of this DVD and watch it multiple times, because you've got someone who's in a subordinate position and he has to lead up if he expects to win. Now, the story, when you look at the movie, you had this golfer named Randolph Jr. He's from Savannah, Georgia. He's their favorite son. He's the #1 guy in the community. He's got this great looking girlfriend that happens to be rich, which always makes a girlfriend look better. While he goes off into World War I and he's serving in the Army, and everybody that's in his company really came from Savannah, Georgia. And then they have this one battle that they go into, and in the midst of this battle, everybody gets killed except Juna. He earns a Medal of Honor for what he did during that conflict. He returns home, and carrying all of those bricks in his bag, all of that grief, he becomes a drunk and just sort of hides on the outskirts of the community. Now, Juna gets involved in a golf tournament, and in this tournament, they've got 2 professional golfers, Bobby Jones and Walter Hagen. Both of them are coming to put on this exhibition golf tournament, and they wanted somebody from Savannah, Georgia, to also participate. Now, Juna hadn't played golf in years, but now here's his opportunity. He really doesn't want to do it, but Adele has shown up in his life again, and she talks him into it. So one night he's standing out on the golf course, and he's just driving balls down this golf course. He's just standing there hitting these balls down the golf course when Bagger Vance comes walking right straight up the golf course in front of him. It's dark. Juna looks at him and said, "What are you doing? I could have killed you with one of those balls that I was hitting down there." He goes, "No, sir, you really couldn't, because I positioned myself right in front of you when I came up here. And the way you were hitting those balls, I was pretty sure that you wouldn't hit me." Juna shows up and tells him that he's willing to be his golf caddy for $5 guaranteed. Now, Bagger starts to help Juno come to grips with some of his personal demons and starts to get his game back. He's really using golf to dig into this individual and help him figure out what he should be doing with his life. Now, when the match starts, Jones and Hagen, they play well, but Juno is far behind. By the end of the first round, he is so far behind, nobody thinks he has a chance at all. But Bagger's caddying for him, and at the same time, he's giving him advice. Juno starts to rediscover his authentic swing. That's what you really want to do with your boss. You want to help them figure out their authentic selves, who they really are. Sort of like being a coach and a counselor all in one. If you can help them find that authentic swing, then you get them in a position that they can really start to win. In the second and the third round, Juno makes up some ground and he gets to the point that he can almost win this tournament. Now, late in the final round, Juno starts disregarding Bagger. His ego starts to take over, and he decides he knows more about golf than this caddy does, so he starts going his own way. And that's when he starts to play poorer and poorer and poorer. He finally hits one ball that goes right into the forest. When he walks into that forest, he starts to get a flashback from World War I. But Bagger's voice, when he's talking with him in those woods, letting him know, I'm right here with you. I've always been with you. I'm never going to leave you. You have an authentic swing. As soon as you discover what that is, again, because you've simply forgotten it, you still have that swing. You just have to remember. Once he starts having that discussion with him, Juno starts to play a lot better. Juno pulls back until he is in a tie with Jones and Hagen. But he calls a penalty on himself. He's in the last round. He has the opportunity to actually win this tournament. He reaches down and he moves a leaf in the darkness that's near his ball. And he should have just been able to clear it away, but when he touches that leaf, the ball moves just a little. Hagen and Jones, neither one of them want him to call a penalty on himself. Nobody that's standing out there wants him to really call a penalty on himself. But Bagger Vance looks at it and he says he has found himself again. He has confidence in himself. His ethics, his morals have returned. So there's no need for me anymore. And Bagger starts to walk off even before the 18th hole is completed. Now, when you buy the DVD, you can see how the whole thing turns out, because I'm not going to cheat the people that made the DVD. You need to see it. Now, what Bagger was all about is rapport. Rapport is what you have to have with the boss if you're going to lead them to a better performance. It's your ability to connect, to be on the same wavelength with your boss. It's you being able to feel them, to understand them at a deep and personal level. It is essentially meeting people in their model of the world. It's seeing things the way that they see it and then moving them to something else. It is actually taking your boss, getting them to take your arm, understanding where they are, and then walking them towards greater productivity. That's really what we're talking about. It's not sitting behind them telling them, do this, do that, move in that direction. It is you letting them take your arm and moving them from their worldview to the one that you have. There's any doubt in your mind that as an HR professional, you have a different worldview than most of the people that are in the C-suite with you. You see your business through the eyes of people. But most of the leaders that are in there, they see the business through the eyes of production, through the eyes of finances, through the eyes of competition. They don't really see it through people the way that you do. So you're trying to give them a different paradigm, and you kind of have to take them by the arm and walk them along until they get that. When it comes to creating rapport, it's you mirroring and matching that individual. It's coming all the way over to where they are, spending enough time with them here so that they feel she really does understand what I'm talking about. She knows what my challenges are. She knows me. And once you have developed that kind of rapport, by mirroring them, by matching them, by being empathetic with them, then you can start moving them off in the direction you want them to go. In the movie, there are 4 steps that Bagger uses in order to meet Juno where he is and then move him to a place of greater productivity. Number 1 is he helped him find his place as a leader. In this case, it was in golf. Then he helped him find his self-esteem and his self-efficacy. Then he helped him find his commitment one more time, and he made sure that Judah knew, I am always with you. I've always been with you. So let's look at that first one, helping them find their place as a leader. In that part of the movie, Bagger Vance said, what I'm talking about is a game. It's just a game. It's a game that can't be won, only played. It's just a game. And when we're talking about business, it really is just a game. Can't be won. It can only be played at greater levels of productivity. You've got to lead your boss to play their best game, their best ever. You do that by taking them back, causing them to remember things. So how'd you get to this position? Ma'am, can you remember a time when you really did knock the ball over the fence? What do you brag about when you're bragging to people about who you are? See, when we have those kind of conversations with leaders, they get quiet and they start to go inside to really figure out who they are. That's when we're doing the best for them. You lead them to play their very best game. One of the books that I recommend for you is this one by John Baldoni, Lead Your Boss. It's an excellent book, probably about a 2-day read. He said you need to demonstrate that you know how to lead others. So that means you've got to demonstrate your leadership ability. When you get your boss to function the way he or she is supposed to function, you can't tell me that that doesn't cut down on a lot of your problems. A lot of the time that you spend actually doing their job for them, making sure that they don't screw up the entire thing. If you can get them to actually lead, all of that goes away. As a matter of fact, when you get your boss to lead, you'll find that a lot of your personnel problems kind of go by the wayside. Most people in our organization, most of the people on our team, they want to be heard. They want to connect with somebody. They want to connect with her, the one that's sitting all the way up at the top. So when you can get that individual to lead in a more effective fashion, that cuts away at a lot of the problems you have in your organization. General Norman Schwarzkopf once said that leadership is the art, the talent, the skill, the ability to get others to do those things that they do not naturally or normally want to do. General Schwartz didn't come up with that. That's what you get for a definition your first year at West Point. It is art, talent, skill, and ability. It is your ability to get people to be more than they believe themselves to be. That's leadership. That's what you want to get done. And you have to do it not only with the people that are your peers and your subordinates, but also with your superiors. Roosevelt said once, do what you can with what you have where you are. What he was talking about was the idea of not being hindered by what you don't have, not holding back because you don't have the perfect situation, but simply deciding whatever I've got right now, I'm going to use that in order to move my organization in the direction that it should move. Notice when I said my organization, that means you have to take possession of the business that you work in. You should have had possession all the time. You do have all the people, don't you? So it's your responsibility to take possession of that. You have to make sure that when you're leading from the middle, someplace on the food chain rather than the top of the food chain, that you understand there will be problems all the time. I saw a quote the other day that had to do with the United States Navy SEALs. And in the quote it said, the only easy day was yesterday. Like you just missed it. The only easy day was yesterday. When you're talking about leading up the food chain, you're really talking about your best days are probably behind you. It's going to be a little harder going forward until you get that individual from there to where you want to take them. Up leaders think big picture. They have a huge vision of what the organization could be. They are willing to do whatever it takes to get the job done. They're willing to subordinate their ego. They're not waiting for somebody to pat them on the back and tell them just how wonderful they are. They facilitate the success of their boss and the success of their team. They're artful. They're adept. It means they have the ability to say just the right thing at just the right time to get exactly what they want for an outcome. That's really what we do when we're talking about leading up. A lot of times when I'm coaching people, I figure out what I need to say to them in order to get the reaction that I want out of them. And sometimes I will say that and then just watch the wheels start to turn in their head. That's really what you do when you're leading a boss. You can't really tell them what to do, but you could tell them it'd be nice if this occurred. It would be great for us as an organization if that transpired. When you do that, that's when you're really starting to lead that boss, when you're being artful and adept. You want to rethink and reframe what the organization is trying to do. What is it that you want to accomplish as an organization? You ought to be able to get it down to just one sentence. How do you want to go about doing it? Why do you want to go about doing it? How can you start to act more for the organization than for yourself? You want to make sure that you think like a boss. And if your boss is a lousy boss, think like somebody else. Find somebody else that you consider to be a great boss and start to think like that individual. Avoid stealing your boss's spotlight. You don't really need to. Every time the organization does something, you will benefit from it. You don't need to have someone pat you on the back and tell you it's just wonderful how you got her to do that. No, it wasn't me. That was her. We sat and we talked about it for a little while, but she moved it in that direction. You want to make sure as you're doing this that you establish trust with your peers. They got to feel comfortable about you, because the closer you get to the boss with politics, the more people will start to nitpick at you. So make sure you get people to trust you. Make sure that you get adept at turning ideas into action. You know, understand how to make things happen. There's nothing wrong with kind of going behind the scenes and conducting things so that you get them moving in the right direction. Make sure you're constantly reframing challenges as opportunities. When your boss is crying on the worst day, you have got to be that one individual that shows up that says, yeah, it's ugly. It's ugly. But you know what? There's some challenges in here. If we have a challenge, we also have some opportunities. There's some things that could work out well for us. We could end up losing quite a bit. One of my clients, they make chairs for the casino industry. They've been doing it for probably the last 35 years. It's a family-owned business. They're in the third generation right now. They went from $50 million down to $12 million. Yeah, because when the economy goes bad, people aren't really going to casinos and spending a whole lot of money. So casinos weren't upgrading, and so they started to lose quite a bit of money. When I talked to the president of the company, he said, we had 3 different layoffs. The first one, we got rid of people that we had around and we probably should have gotten rid of earlier. The second layoff, that's when we got rid of people that we really, really wanted to keep. And the third layoff is when we got rid of folks that we really could not afford to lose. And my question when I was sitting at his desk was, all right, I understand. You think you're over the grief of that now? He goes, yeah, I feel pretty good about it. He goes, some of them were friends, some of them were family. And I said, I got that. So you're smaller, you've got less revenue. Where are my opportunities in that? And he smiled and he goes, you are always talking about opportunities. I'm going, yeah, every coin has 2 sides to it. If I'm looking at challenges on one side, I got opportunities on the other. Where are your opportunities? And he sat there and he said, well, we can probably operate a lot leaner and a lot meaner now. Okay, that's a great opportunity. We might be able to really go up against some of our competition because they had to lose some people too. I'm going, okay, so there's another opportunity. Now, how do we take those opportunities and frame them so that we can make them part of your strategic plan? What we really want to do is to help them see things differently. You as the HR professional cannot be another voice that comes in and complains to the boss. They already have enough of those. You've got to be the individual that shows up that's always positive. If you're having a bad day, you're not that positive, go outside, kick a tree. Run over something on the way in. Make yourself feel better. Because when you show up in the organization, you have got to be positive. If you're not positive, then that boss that already wants to throw in the towel, they're going to feel like doing it. You want to make sure that you're constantly challenging conventions. Ask, why are we doing things this way? As an HR professional, you're supposed to know people more than you understand the business. So if you're smart enough to understand the business, you can ask questions that they have never asked before. What I like about being a contractor is that I get to go into a business and know absolutely nothing about it. I have no idea what you do. So I ask some of the dumbest questions in the world, but I do expect an answer. Why do you do it that way? Well, that's the way it has to be done. Why do you say it has to be done that way? Well, that's the way we've always done it. Okay, so that's the way you did it. Back when phones had like a rotary dial on it. Yes, they don't have those anymore. So why are you still doing it that way now? Well, I never really thought about doing it differently. Well, if you thought about doing it differently, how would it be different? As an HR professional, you get to ask those questions. They don't think you know anything about the business. Let them continue to believe that. Ask them questions in a fashion that will cause them to come up with something different for an answer. And finally, make sure you keep your mouth shut. You cannot be an up leader if you're constantly running your mouth. You cannot be caught up in the gossip of the organization. You should listen to all of it. You should listen to every bit of it. When somebody wants to come and tell you something, listen. Listen. All of that grapevine information, make sure that you hear that. I'd never ever worked in HR. I wanted to. I really did. The first company that I went to when I came out of the Army, you know, HR was one. I had a degree in engineering, but I had an interest in HR. I thought I could do well at that. You know, I'd been in leadership positions. I thought I'd really work well there. And so I started working as an engineer, but I spent a whole lot of time with HR. And so finally I went in to see the head of HR, vice president of HR, and I sat down with Trudy and I said, listen, I'm seriously thinking about making a change from engineering to human resources. And she goes, oh, why? And I said, well, I think I'd be good at it. I think I'd really like to do it. And she went, I really don't want you to do that. And I'm going, well, why? You know, you're the one that's always coming down to my office and telling me you got a problem with this employee. Go talk to him. She goes, I do that because they'll talk to you because you're not in HR. You're incredibly valuable to us. You go down there and walk around on the floor and smile and cut jokes with people and everything and ask them what they're doing, and they tell you stuff. You notice how there's not a long line coming into HR? You have to make sure that you're one of those individuals that people will talk to in the organization. That means you have to keep people's confidence. Let things come in one ear and stay there. Doesn't have to come out of your mouth just because you heard it. Make sure that you don't spend a whole lot of time seeking credit. You don't want people to really pat you on the back all the time. If the boss knows that you just helped out, that's enough. You don't need everybody else to come in and pat you on the back. And make sure that you don't spend any time whatsoever backbiting. If your boss is a complete moron, that's the kind of discussion that you need to have with yourself on Saturdays and Sundays. Not in the office Monday through Friday. He's an idiot. He's a moron. I am so sick of him. Not another day. Good morning, sir. How are you doing today? Yes, we're going to have another great day here at ABC Corporation. You have to have that ability. Just because you think something doesn't mean you have to actually tell anybody that. The next one is you want to help them find their self-esteem and their self-efficacy. Self-esteem is how they feel about themselves. Self-efficacy is how they feel about their ability to manifest their intended level of greatness. In this one, Bagger said, inside each and every one of us is one true, authentic swing. Something we was born with. Something that's ours alone. Something that got to be remembered. It gets buried under all our wouldas and couldas and shouldas. Now's the time. Let yourself remember. Remember your swing. Now's the time. You want to help them remember the very best of themselves. You want to sort of put them up on a pedestal for just a moment. Up leaders spend their time nurturing self-esteem. You know, regardless of how high someone has climbed on the corporate ladder, I guarantee you all the time, they just wonder. They question themselves. They wonder whether or not they did it right. Could they have done it better? Could they have done it any differently? You want to make sure that you are always pumping their self-esteem. You're always working their ego. I married Army. My father-in-law was in the Army from the time he was, as we can best figure out right now, 16 years old until he retired 32 years later. My father-in-law went into the Army by walking from his daddy's tobacco farm in Clarksville, Virginia, to the bus stop, not bus station, but a bus stop along the road between Clarksville and the next town. He caught a bus to Fort Lee, Virginia, went through his basic training and his advanced individual training at Fort Lee. He came home, picked up his girlfriend, walked her over to the barbershop because that's where the preacher was during the week, and they got married between chairs 1 and 2. Then they went off for a 32-year military career starting at Fort Knox, Kentucky, the same fort that I started off as a second lieutenant. During his 32 years in the Army, he earned the National Defense Service Medal, the Army Commendation Medal, the Meritorious Service Medal, the Vietnam Service Medal for 2 tours, both of them including combat action. He got a Bronze Star, a Silver Star, and went from E0 to E8 in all of those years. He has more things hanging on the wall behind his front door than I have hanging on my wall, and I got a lot of junk on my wall. And yet anytime that I sit and talk with him about what it was like for him when he was in the Army, at some point in time, he'll look down at the ground. He gets very quiet. And he says, on the day I left to go into the Army, my mother, right out in that front yard, looked at me and said, you ain't never been nothing, and you ain't never gonna be nothing. All of that stuff really does not matter that much to him. He will remember what she said to him. She's been gone for more than 20 years, and he still remembers. When he left the Army, he became a construction crew chief. He pushed troops for another 25 years. He retired from that job. He raised 8 children all over the world. Took his family with him everywhere he went if he could. He never earned a Purple Heart because he never got wounded in combat. But he can sit and tell me every time he saw combat action. And yet what he remembers more than anything is that she told him, you ain't never been nothing. You ain't never gonna be nothing. So my process with him is to sit, listen to him, and just go, Top, could she have been wrong? No, that was my mother. I understand. But for just a minute, and I go over and I close his front door, I'm going, National Defense Service Medal, Army Commendation Medal, Meritorious Service Medal, Vietnam Service Medal, Bronze Star, Silver Star, E8. How could she be right if you have all of this behind the door? So now I've been doing this for years, and now if he gets into that, I ain't never been nothing. I ain't never gonna be nothing. Top, and when I get up out of the seat, he goes, yeah, I know, it's behind the door. That's what we do with people when we're trying to lead up, right? We nurture their self-esteem all the time. We want to raise, increase, and release. Raise their aspirations about who they are. Make them feel good about it. Increase their belief about what they can do and what they can become. And release their energies for the organization. When we do that, when people feel like they can accomplish great things because we told them they could, that's when we really start to see the very best out of them. The next thing that we want to do is to help them find their commitment. You know, sometimes in life, our senior leaders have been beat up so much that they're just not committed to the organization anymore. They're just hoping to get to the end of retirement age without being dead, right? As middle leaders, as people that are leading up, what we want to do is to help them find that commitment all over again. A Bagger told Juna, you want to quit, Mr. Juna? You just go ahead and creep off somewhere. I tell folks, you took sick. Truth be told, ain't nobody gonna really object. And Juna said, you know I can't quit. And Bagger said, I know. Just making sure you know it too. You want to make sure that we're always helping them find their commitment, helping them remember that they're supposed to be engaged with this organization, making them remember that there are a huge number of people that depend upon their decisions and their productivity. So commitment, spend some time defining their objectives, letting them know exactly what it is that they should be accomplishing. Make sure that you help them visualize that end result. What would it be like if we really got this organization manifesting it in its intended level of greatness? What is it that you want to see? Ask them questions like those. They're open-ended. They have to come up with something. Make sure that you spend time planning your discussion with the boss. Do you have a boss that wants to hear from you on Monday morning? Do you have one that wants to hear from you last thing on Friday? For you, it's more like being a motivational speaker than anything else. You're spending your time talking with them. Listen to some DVDs. Listen to some CDs from some great speakers. Walk in already ready to know that I'm going to have to let them ride on my back until we get finished with this week. And the last thing is, make sure they know that you're with them. Ever been lonely? Ever felt like you were the only person in your position? Your boss feels like that a lot of times. They close that door and they know that it's just lonely being a leader. They can't talk to anybody. They can't tell them how bad it is. You have to be that one individual that they can look at and say, come into my office, sit down. I don't want anything that I say for the next half an hour to go outside of this room, but I need to talk to somebody. In this particular one, Bagger said, I'm right here with you. I've been here all along. Now play the game, your game, the one that only you was meant to play, the one that was given to you when you come into this world. Make sure they know that regardless of how ugly it gets, they're never alone, that you'll always be there. You'll always be listening. That means you got to be your boss's ally. You got to have a lot of conversations with them. Buy them a cup of coffee every now and then. Take it in, sit it down. Look at them when they come in on Monday morning. They look like the dog just died. Get a cup of coffee. Walk in, sit down. When they're dragging baggage from home, make sure you're the individual that walks in and said, you know, you just didn't look that good coming in this morning. You look tired. You look haggard. Just thought I'd bring you some coffee. I can sit in here with you while you drink it, or I can go back out. Listen to what they say. Pay attention to it. In everything that they say, you will find little things that you can use in order to get them acting professional again. You want to make sure that you discover exactly what your boss's currency is. What is it that turns them on? Figure out exactly what that is and try to give it to them as much as possible. Are they really committed to their vision? Are they committed to doing things the right way? Do they want you to offer help? Do they want things done faster or more efficiently? Figure out what their currency is and try to pay them as much as you can. Make sure that you have confidence and conviction, and that has to be in yourself. If you don't see yourself as being larger than life, as being an individual that actually can lead the person that's leading everyone else, you won't ever get there. So make sure you spend time believing that you're all that, a bag of chips and some dip on the side. You know, affirmations are wonderful things. Get up in the morning, sometimes stand flat foot in front of your mirror and just go, look at me. Lord, I'm good looking. You need to do that every now and then because it does lift your spirits. It makes you feel good about who you are. If you feel good about who you are, I guarantee your boss will start to feel good about who he or she is. And don't give up too soon. Don't give up on them too soon. You know, I have found in life that I can push people in coaching and counseling, and just when I think they're never going to change, it's never going to make any difference, and then I'll come in on a Monday to discover there's somebody brand new sitting in their office, still looking like them. Your boss will test your dedication over and over and over again, and you have to stand up to the test every single time. So just don't give up too soon. Show your boss attention, show them affirmation, show them appreciation. That's hard to do when you think that they are possibly the worst individual that you have ever met in the world. So that means you got to reframe your idea of who they really are. And notice that everything that I've got down there, attention, affirmation, and appreciation, notice that they won't cost you a dime. They don't hit you in your budget at all. Show them all kinds of attention, all kinds of affirmation, all kinds of appreciation. I have clients that I take affirmations to. So I'll show up every now and then. We're getting ready to have a meeting. I'll slide a little 3x5 card across the table, and it's got things for them to do this week. And they'll look at it the first couple of times and go, Art, what is this? That's something that I want you to repeat about 3 times a day for the next week until we get together again. What is that going to do? Have no idea. Just do it. Do it 3 times a day from now until we get together again. And let's see whether or not it makes some kind of difference. Art, I don't believe anything that's on that card. I got that. Just read the card out aloud every single day, 3 or 4 times until we get together again. You know, over a period of time, we start to change who they are. We start to change them internally. Art, that's all real noble stuff. That sounds all that good and everything. But what's in it for me? Everybody listens to the same radio station all the time, WIIFM. What's in it for me? Here's what I have discovered. When I work with flag officers in DOD, I have discovered that the people that are working for them by the time they get to stars are the same people that were working for them when they were in the lower grades. When I get to senior executive service, people that have gone from GS4 up to GS15 and then into senior executive ranks, what I have noticed is that the same people that are working for them then are the same ones that were working for them when they started out, maybe middle of their career or so. It is always interesting to me that I can have someone who's made it up to SES2. And when I talk with them and they say, well, let Marge know that you're going to come back in a couple of weeks and tell her to put you on the calendar for another 2 hours. Okay, that sounds good. How long has Marge been working? Marge has been, I think Marge has been with me longer than my wife's been with me. Marge has always been with me. Really? You just keep her along? Oh yeah, Marge and I have been in 4 or 5 different agencies. Okay. The reason that you do it is for your organization. You do it because you're worthy of that, but you also do it because it will pay off. These same individuals will allow you to hang on to them as they move up the food chain. And to be real honest about it, when an individual makes it up to GS15, SES4, Vice President of Human Resources, every now and then, when that person leaves, they look back and go, you've been kind of running this place anyway. Why don't you take it? It runs that way. If you will commit to them, they'll continue to dance with you long after that one job is over with. All right, so those are the 4 things that I want you to remember. Do I have any questions before I cut you loose for Tim McGraw? Yes. The first one, that's me. I did. Do you want it? It is $175. Are you actually writing that down? Just send me an email. I'll send you the poem. Anybody else? Yes. If your boss takes, that's a great question. She said, how do you handle it if your boss considers it insubordination? If your boss considers it insubordination, you're doing it wrong. You're actually going against their particular orders. Insubordination means my boss said go left and I decided I'm going right. That's insubordination. But if my boss tells me to go left and I really believe the organization needs to go right, then I should be making comments like, ma'am, did you consider what it would be like if we went right? That's not insubordination, right? And if they do consider it, even when you say it like that it's insubordination, then you got to work more with them. Spend some more time with them. Yes. Where can you bring them up? I'll still be up here. Wet, but I'll be up here. Okay? All right, so let's close out. Here, did you have a question? What if you don't trust your boss? You got 2 possible actions. You can learn to trust them. You can generate trust with them. Or 2, you move on to another corral. That's the bottom line. If you don't trust that individual, I wouldn't continue to work for him. I'd move on to someplace else. Okay? Does that mean that my boss, I was a cadet. And the first night at West Point, you get the honor code. A cadet does not lie, cheat, or steal, or tolerate those who do. So I have real issues with people that lie to me. That's just a huge issue for me. But I've spent years trying to get myself to the place of understanding that just because that's my standard, that does not mean that the people that I'm just starting to work with, that's their standard. Okay? I've hammered clients in their office going, you lied to them. No, I didn't really. Yes, you did. You didn't tell them the truth. Now, you either told them the truth or you lied. You lied to them. You need to fix that. Well, what do you expect me to do? I expect you to go back out there and tell them you lied. And I expect you to tell them why you lied. That's the only way you're going to get their trust back. Do it. Okay? If you don't trust them and you don't feel like you can generate trust, time to ride off into the sunset. All right. So here are the 4 items again. Lead them to play their very best game. Help them remember the very best of who they are. Help them find their commitment and make sure they know that as long as you're there, they're never alone. If you're going to pull that off with your boss, you have to also lead yourself. Personal leadership is the art, the talent, the skill, the ability to get yourself to do those things that you do not naturally and normally want to do. If you particularly feel like your boss shouldn't be in that position, it's going to be real hard for you to continue to work with them to lead up. But that's your job as an HR professional. You're supposed to be able to lead even them because you're the best one in your organization when it comes to leading people, the human resource. The philosophy again, you can accomplish everything that you want to accomplish as long as you're willing to help your boss accomplish what he or she wants to accomplish. Leading up, you're going to help them get their swing back, the one that they showed up with, the one that's authentic, the one that's only theirs. And as long as you continue to push them in that direction, you can find your organization getting better and better all the time. All right, that's my sale, and I'm sticking to it. And I started with a poem called The Challenge to Greatness, and I want to end on one that says, just be great. And it says simply, if you want greatness bad enough to go out and fight for it, if you work day and night for it, if you give up your time, your peace, and your sleep for it, without ceasing, develop yourself day after day for it. If gladly you'd sweat for it, fret for it, plan for it, lose all your terror of trial, tribulation, and man for it. Or if life seems all empty and useless without it, and all that you scheme and dream is about it. If every day you close that gap just a little bit more, and you'll strive till body and brain are sore. If you go after greatness with all of your capacity, strength and sagacity, faith, hope, confidence, and stern pertinacity. If dogged and grim, you besiege and beset it with the help of God, I know you'll get it. So just be great. I'm Art Jackson from Eagles Nest Performance Management. Spending time with you this afternoon has made me peacock proud and honeymoon happy. I'll see you next time. Thank you.